Good Sunday morning. A big week ahead in Washington. On Monday, two highly anticipated hearings on Russia's election meddling and President Trump's Supreme Court nominee. On Thursday, lawmakers expected to vote on the GOP's plan to repeal Obamacare. Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Bartiromo. Thanks for joining us. This is Sunday Morning Futures. President Trump expressing confidence about repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. But as the House gets set to vote this Thursday, can they get conservatives on board? House GOP Conference Chairwoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers joins us momentarily. Plus, Democrats say that they are skeptical of President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch. Will they try to block his confirmation? The hearings begin Monday. And an exclusive interview this Sunday morning with Eric Trump on his relationship with his father and how his business has changed since President Trump began office. We're looking ahead right now on Sunday Morning Futures. Get ready for a blockbuster week on Capitol Hill this upcoming week. Hanging in the balance, the future of health care in America, as the Republicans' plan to repeal and replace Obamacare could hit the House floor this Thursday. Now the push is on for GOP leaders to round up every yes vote they can if they hope to get their bill passed and sent on to the Senate. In an exclusive interview with Jesse Waters, President Trump sounded very confident.
We're going to get something done. I think it's going to be terrific. And it's going to be so much better than Obamacare, which really doesn't exist, because if you allow it to exist for another year, it's going to implode.
Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers chairs the House Republican Conference and sits on the House Energy Committee. She joins us right now. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I saw a soundbite of the president over the weekend basically saying there was a meeting on Friday. He said, I just came out of a meeting. There were 12 no's going into the meeting, and now they're all yeses. Can you give us some color on that meeting? Were you able to flip conservative Republicans to say yes to the House GOP health care plan?
Clearly, President Trump recognizes that we're moving in the right direction, and these members, after spending time with President Trump, had more confidence that we are on a mission critical to this country to ensure that everyone has better health care future than they do right now for every person. And as far as the details of that meeting, I think what I understand is some of the provisions related to Medicaid reform, for example, that the conservatives wanted to see a work requirement, at least an option for the states to have a work requirement for Medicaid. And those are the kind of reforms that I think we need to have. This has all along been a very open, transparent process. We're listening to people. We're in the Energy and Commerce Committee last week, Ways and Means, Budget, and now we're moving to the floor. But every step of the way, we've been listening and perfecting this bill.
So you think this bill will go to the House floor on Thursday, and you think you will clear the vote so that you could send it on to the Senate?
We're definitely moving in the right direction. Not doing anything is not an option. You look at what we're facing in 2017 in the current path under Obamacare. It's projected that premiums will increase 25% on average across the country. We know right now 1 out of 3 counties only has one plan available. Those networks are closing, so we must take action. The Republicans have long been united around the goal of repealing and replacing Obamacare. We believe that that is the way that we ensure a better future, a better health care future for everyone in this country. This is our opportunity. This is our time to act, and we must act.
So what changes did you make with regards to Medicaid? Because this is obviously the area where Rand Paul and his colleagues say, look, this is too much of a government giveaway. What changes did you make to flip those 12 conservatives?
We are making reforms to Medicaid, first time in 52 years. Now, and I think it's important to recognize that Medicaid is a very important safety net. It is intended for some of our most vulnerable, those with disabilities, low-income pregnant women and children, seniors. What Obamacare did was expand Medicaid to able-bodied adults. When you look at who signed up, it was largely these able-bodied adults that under Obamacare didn't have any other option. Millions of Americans who liked their health care plan were forced onto Medicaid, were forced onto the exchanges. And so we're working to empower the states to best structure Medicaid. And so some of the details are how we responsibly unwind Medicaid? What is that way to deal with those that were part of the expansion population? And we're ensuring that they are protected, that they won't have the rug pulled out from underneath them, but we want to return it to the states. We want to give states the opportunity to structure this program in a way that's best going to meet the needs of the individuals and families in those states most in need.
Yeah, you make a great point, and that is, of course, what Paul Ryan told us last week when he joined me on the morning show, Mornings with Maria on the Fox Business Network. And what I asked him was, okay, that's fine, but at the same time, you've been talking about a full repeal and replace. Why is it so difficult to just do away with Obamacare and start fresh, which is really what some of your colleagues want to do? Take a listen to what Paul Ryan told us last week. Was it just too difficult to just throw it all away and do a full repeal and come up with a full replacement?
So first of all, we don't have the votes for just a full repeal because so many of our members, and the president included, said repeal and replace. And if we just did a repeal with reconciliation, meaning 51 votes, and not replace, then we wouldn't be able to get a replace passed because they can filibuster a replace. So the promise that was made to voters by everybody running for House, Senate, and President was we will repeal and replace. And so we're using the budget tools that we have in the Senate to do repeal and replace. Remember, Maria, this is why we have a three-part process. If we could put everything we wanted into this one bill and have it vote on with 51 votes in the Senate, we would do that. But because of the Senate rules and how narrow they are to do what we call reconciliation, you can't put everything you want in that bill, like, say, interstate shopping across state lines. And so this bill is what we can pass through reconciliation, which effectively repeals and replaces the law. It's a very good start. It's actually an excellent start. It's the plan that we did write last year, that we did rain on last year.
But, Congressman, what's Plan B? I mean, if you don't get the necessary votes, the stakes are so high, this backs up everything else. This backs up tax reform. It backs up all of the president's priorities.
This is a time for action, and I am confident that we will come together. This is a shared goal that we have long held as Republicans to repeal and replace Obamacare. I think it's important to review back in 2009 when the Affordable Care Act was passed. It passed the House, and then it went over to the Senate. On Christmas Eve, they mustered up 60 votes to get the Affordable Care Act passed through the Senate, and then they lost. Senator Kennedy passed away, and we won that seat. Senator Brown was elected. They no longer had 60 votes in the Senate, and then they did the rest of the Affordable Care Act through reconciliation. What we have proposed is a path that will repeal and replace Obamacare. We start with the bill that we put on the president's desk last year that President Obama vetoed. So that is the repeal bill of Obamacare, and then we add to it the transition items that are going to make for a smooth transition. And we're adding the tax credits, the Medicaid reform, the expansion of the health savings accounts. And then phase 2 is what they can do in the administration under Secretary Tom Price, the deregulation. There's over 1,400 provisions within the Affordable Care Act where the administration did the details and actually wrote the rules and regulations, and Tom Price is going to review all of that. And then phase 3 is what will require 60 votes in the Senate. And those are the policy items, like across state lines, association health plans, other bipartisan healthcare policy that we will be able to figure out how we get to 60 votes and get it onto the president's desk.
All right, we're all watching with bated breath, Congresswoman. We'll be watching this big agenda that you are efforting in 2017. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be watching Thursday as well. Thank you, Kathy McMorris Rogers. The Trump administration going right back at one of the first states to block the president's revised travel ban. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich next on the Justice Department's obstruction and objection to Hawaii's pushback. You can follow me on Twitter at Maria Bartiromo at Sunday Futures. Let us know what you'd like to hear from Newt Gingrich and Secretary Shulman from the VA coming up. Stay with us. We're looking ahead right now on Sunday Morning Futures. Welcome back. The Department of Justice is asking a federal judge in Hawaii to narrow the temporary restraining order he issued last week, blocking key parts of President Trump's new travel ban. They say it should focus only on Mr. Trump's attempt to put a 90-day hold on citizens traveling from 6 majority Muslim countries, instead of sweeping in several other aspects of the executive order. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich joins us now to talk more about it. Good to see you, Speaker. Thank you very much for joining us. What do you think about this? Now, Hawaii.
Well, look, they're going to shop around and find a judge who is sufficiently liberal that they have a good chance of getting what they want. But if you read his ruling, it's crazy. He essentially makes an assertion that if you have any people in our country who came from the country that's named, that you've extended constitutional rights to that country. So non-citizens suddenly have all the protections of the U.S. Constitution. Well, since we have people from every country on the planet, if you extended his reasoning, he would have extended constitutional protections to everybody on the entire planet. I mean, it's an example of a totally irresponsible judge living out his ideology with the power of the court without responsibility. He's not responsible if something bad happens. The President of the United States is. It's a terrible ruling.
Yeah, the other thing is that they're looking at the comments or remarks that he made on the campaign trail and looking at those statements as what he's going to do, rather than actually looking at what he has proposed doing. Does that start a new precedent about looking at what anybody said at any time?
Look, as former Justice Scalia used to say, you know, in case after case, the courts were just making up the law. The courts are imposing their personal views, their personal prejudice, their personal political judgments. They're not judges are supposed to interpret the law.
Yeah.
The Congress and the President are supposed to make the law. The judges are supposed to interpret it. We've now had a legal elitism where they think that lawyers are allowed to be one-man constitutional conventions. That's what happened in Hawaii.
Let me switch gears, ask you about some of the other newsier events this weekend. Obviously, Steven Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary, just back from the G20 meeting. And then on Friday, the President had a meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The pictures, I don't know what you thought about this meeting. I mean, the President tweeted out and saying, look, you know, despite what you heard from fake news, we had a great meeting. But then he went on to basically say Germany is not paying their fair share when it comes to NATO. So it was a sort of a mix. I don't know. How do you view this meeting?
Well, let me just say, first of all, that one of the sad things about the week was that the President went to Nashville to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the birth of Andrew Jackson, gave, I think, a very, very important speech, maybe the most important speech since his joint session address, in which he compared himself to Andrew Jackson, talked about Andrew Jackson in a very positive way. And I think it's unfortunate the news media didn't pay more attention to it, because it would also relate to what happened with Merkel. The fact is that President Trump is going to be, like Andrew Jackson, an intensely American president. He's going to represent American values, American interests. To her credit, Chancellor Merkel is very German, and she is going to defend German interests and German values. The fact is they probably had a pretty frigid meeting. They might be pleasant personally, but she has one set of views. He has a very different set of views. They're both very tough people. She's been in power a long time. And I think that the pictures probably told you about reality. They are able to talk with each other. They don't agree. Germany does not pay its fair share. They are not as this is the biggest economy in Europe.
Yeah.
They ought to be carrying their fair share of the cost of NATO.
Yeah, I agree with you. It looked like it was frigid. But you're right. You know, and she's led in all of these refugees, and he was very vocal over the last couple of years in terms of what that did for Europe. And we'll see how some of these races go. I mean, obviously the Netherlands did not go all the way to the right, but France is on the horizon, and we've got an election there to watch to see if populism takes hold. And that leads me to the next story, and that is Steven Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary at the G20 this weekend. You know, they had a debate on how to say their language. All of the ministers, they never really have a debate. They agree on one statement, and they put it out for the statement. But this time they did have a debate because Steven Mnuchin kept saying the trade laws currently are not fair to America. So, no, take the word open out. Take this word out. We want fair trade as well as free trade, which is what he told us, actually, on this program a couple of weeks ago.
Well, and it's very parallel to what Secretary of State Tillerson has said about the UN Human Rights Commission, that if it doesn't get its act together, we're going to pull out, because we're not going to tolerate dictators and anti-Semitics focusing on Israel and being totally one-sided. Similarly, we are saying to the world, and of course the world doesn't like it, we're saying to the world, look, the 70-year-long process of being able to rely on American generosity is over. We are now going to protect our economic interests in a way we have not since before World War II. And this is a huge change. Well, if you're one of the countries that's been doing just great because the U.S. has been stupid and the United States gets smart, it kind of irritates you and frightens you. And that's literally all across the planet. You're seeing countries who are suddenly going, what, you mean the American president's actually going to defend the American economy? Why, that's cheating. They're supposed to have an open door so we can sell everything we want to. By the way, none of these countries have open doors for us, as any business that tries to invest or sell will tell you.
Yeah, well, we'll see about how it all plays out, but they're making their positions very clear across the world. Newt, great, always good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Great pleasure
Take
there.
care.
Newt Gingrich joining us there. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, taking care of those who defend our freedom. The Veterans Administration, one of the few agencies that is expecting an increase under President Trump's budget proposal for the VA. We're going to talk with the VA Secretary, David Shulman, next as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. Welcome back. President Trump unveiling his first budget last week and living up to his campaign promise to increase funding for America's veterans, especially their health care at VA hospitals, the Defense and Homeland Security departments, as well as Veterans Affairs, seeing the biggest increase in spending in the president's budget, with the State Department, EPA, and Health and Human Services among those taking the biggest hits, with declines in the budget spending. Joining us right now is David Shulkin. He is the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. And Secretary Shulkin, it's good to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
Characterize for us the budget increase that you've heard from the president and how you're expecting to allocate that new money coming in.
Well, I think what we've seen is a commitment of the president to make sure that we have the resources necessary to care for this country's veterans. And he came through with that commitment. So we're very pleased that we have those resources available to make sure that we're providing those services to the people that really deserve it the most.
So where is the biggest need then, Secretary Shulkin? I mean, how will you distribute that money? What will you do with this extra increase in money should this budget pass?
I think about it three ways, Maria. First of all, we're looking to really modernize this system to make sure that this is the very best care available. That means investments in technology, investments in the types of systems that our people rely upon to treat our veterans. Secondly, we do have a big need for additional healthcare professionals, particularly in rural parts of our country. We are looking for approximately 40,000 professionals to join in the VA to make sure that we are providing that care, a lot of them in the mental health area. And third, we are looking to expand the ability for our veterans to go into the community, into private health care, wherever they can find the very best health care possible.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people think you've got the goods to do that because you've been there. You got 100% approval during your confirmation, and you are also the only person in the cabinet who actually is also served under President Obama. So a lot of buy-in for your leadership. Congratulations to you for that. Do you expect that is enough? Do you think that what you heard from the president in terms of how he's budgeting the Veterans Affairs, will this do the trick?
Well, I do think that we now have the resources that we need to make sure that we get this system right for our veterans. In terms of the support from Congress for my confirmation, it's really a reflection of the way the country feels about taking care of our veterans. This is an issue that is not partisan. This is an issue that everybody agrees upon, that our veterans, those who have defended us and left to go and to make sure that whatever their personal needs are, that they put the country first. They deserve the very best, and so I'm going to make sure as Secretary that they get that.
You know, earlier we spoke with Kevin Brady, the head of House Ways and Means Committee on the Fox Business Network, and I asked him about all of the noise around this agenda. I mean, you've got your agenda, the president comes out with the budget, but is what we are reading about, whether it be the wiretapping, other things, creating distraction in terms of executing this budget? Let's take a listen to what Kevin Brady told me this week. There's so much riding on this. You know that. The American people know that. The markets know that with the 15% rally since Election Day. What's Plan B if this plan doesn't fly?
It will fly. And here's why. Look, we know that restoring control back to states and individuals can lower health care in a major way for people. We also know Obamacare is a sinking ship. It's going to take a lot of good Americans with it. So we know we have to act now to create this transition, to give people these choices. And we also know this. We need to finish health care right so that we can pass the budget, clear the decks for tax reform.
You've got all these other things, noise, if you will, around wiretapping claims, and then the House and Senate Intel Committee coming out and saying we don't have evidence, and then you've got Sean Spicer and his briefings defending all of this stuff every day. Congressman, how much of a distraction is all of this stuff to you implementing this agenda?
The answer is not too much, and here's why. Look, the goal in Washington, it seems, up here, is to distract the president the moment they get into office. And I can tell you this from my meetings with President Trump and his team, where they are focused on getting this repeal and replace right, getting security right, and getting tax reform right this year.
Secretary Shokin, is that how you see it?
I do see it that way. We're not going to be distracted by these issues. We're going to make sure that we stay focused on getting our system fixed for our veterans.
All right, we will leave it there. Secretary, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Secretary David Shulkin joining us. Up next, Eric Trump talks business. What I want to know, and I think what viewers want to know, is are you a buyer or a seller right now? Because people don't know where the real estate market is going right now.
I think in every market you have a little, him and haw, but the great thing about being at 21,000 in terms of the stock market is, hey, that's a really, really good thing. There's a lot of discretionary income out there, and I think real estate is going to continue to do really nice. And I think as the markets, quite frankly, ride up, I think, real estate will continue to increase.
My exclusive interview with Eric Trump coming next as we look ahead right here on Sunday Morning Futures. Welcome back. Up close and personal with Eric Trump. I spoke with the president's son in an exclusive interview this past week, touching on everything from his relationship with his father to the state of the Trump organization today and the ongoing controversy about Russia. Starting off, I asked him if he takes the criticism and obstructionism from the left personally.
You want to protect your family. You want to protect somebody that you love, and so I think you take it personally. I think now if we took everything personally, you'd end up jumping out the window behind you. I mean, you literally couldn't, and so you have to have a thick armor, but you also have to realize that that's the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, when you become a politician, immediately 50% of the people love you and 50% of the people probably hate you. We have a very divided political system, and I think he can really change that over the next couple of years, but that's a reality of politics. So if you take it too personally, I don't think you'd sleep at night. I think you wouldn't be productive. You certainly wouldn't enjoy yourself. You'd just be a miserable person. So I think you have to let it roll off your shoulders.
You and your brother running the Trump organization right now. How often do you speak to your father?
Yeah, I speak to my father, and I speak to him a decent amount, but we do keep perfect separation of church and state. It was something that was incredibly important to him. It's something that's incredibly important to me. And just from a practical standpoint, I mean, he's got the biggest job in the world, Maria. I mean, he's got the biggest job in the world. You see what they're talking about in terms of lowering taxes. You see what they're talking about in terms of, border security, building the wall, rebuilding our military, the amount of money that he's cutting out of, the budgets every single year, the waste he's trying to curb, etc. I mean, these are the biggest things in the world. These are billions and billions and trillions of dollars worth of deals, and we're a great company, but quite frankly, he's got much bigger fish to fry, and so we're back in New York, and believe me, I will always be his biggest cheerleader, but we're taking great care of the company, and he's going to take great care of this country, and it's a great combination.
Yeah.
But I miss him, honestly. I miss him. It's he used to always send down these great little notes on a piece of paper. You see a newspaper article, hey, Eric, great job with this. This project's going to be amazing, and you miss seeing those notes, but at the same time, you just look at the magnitude of the things that he's trying to accomplish. It's just going to better the lives of you and me and all Americans, and the next generation of Americans and everybody else, and it's incredibly special.
How have things changed for you?
Yeah, well, we have an amazing company. I mean, we've really focused on buying the best assets around the U.S. and really around the world, the best hotels, the best golf courses, commercial buildings, residential buildings, wineries, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we really have an amazing portfolio. We focus on the very high end of the market, really in the 5-star space, and it's been fantastic. And we have an amazing company, and we have, quite frankly, an amazing brand, and a brand that stands for quality and luxury and iconic properties. But it's changed. We've also, in light of politics, we've said, hey, listen, we're not going to expand anymore internationally. We're not going to do any new international projects. And that was a big piece of what we did. I mean, that's a big piece of what I did and Don did and Ivanka did when she was in the company. And so that's certainly a change, but it's also the right thing to do.
How do you identify what the next growth spot is?
Yeah, I think it's gut. I think it's intuition. I think there's certain leading factors that go into it. But, you see a place, and you see places that are reducing taxes. They're trying to incentivize businesses to come in. And those are always the places that do immensely well. I mean, look at Florida. Florida is a perfect example of that. Look how well the state has done. And why have they done well? Because they have low taxes. They've got an incredible quality of life. Real estate prices weren't astronomical, meaning you could move from a state like New York into Florida. You could get a much bigger bang for the buck, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden you see this growth explosion in Florida, and it was because of those factors. I mean, they were pro-business, they were they were pro-quality of life, they were pro-infrastructure, they did a lot of things right. And I think you're seeing that right now in a lot of markets in Texas. You certainly saw that in North Carolina and South Carolina and other states that really grew massively. And, I think a lot of the states that aren't focused on those priorities, reducing taxes, fiscal responsibility, quality of life, et cetera, I think, quite frankly, they've been losing a lot of their tax base, and that's very, very sad.
How do you think about doing business globally at the same time as the president, your father, is thinking about securing borders and putting America first and the globe second?
Well, listen, I don't think 1 and 2 are contrary to one another, but I think when people abuse the system, they can be. I think the difference with us is we might do a project globally, but all the money comes back to the United States. And that's a great thing for the United States. I think you see a lot of other companies, I can name 20 off the top of my head right now, including many of the biggest companies in this nation, that will go off and they'll do a project overseas, or they'll do their business venture overseas, and then all of a sudden they're parking all their money overseas, and they're taking advantage of lower taxes and shell companies here and there. And I think that's also unacceptable. I mean, we need to make America a pro-business environment, and it hasn't been, unfortunately, for a very, very long time. And people want to invest in America. I mean, America's the safest place to invest. It's got the best rule of law. It's got so many advantages. I mean, think about it. If you are a wealthy person from overseas, where do you put your money right now? Do you put it in Europe? Probably not, because it's not growing all that quickly. Do you put it in the Middle East? I would argue no. Do you put it in Central and South America? Well, maybe strategically, but maybe not. Do you put it in Asia? I think a lot of those markets are probably overvalued, and I think you're seeing that all the time. So, maybe not. Where do you want to park your money? You want to park your money in the United States of America. What's the one detractor from parking your money in the U.S.? Ridiculous taxes.
So you and Donald Trump Jr. are splitting duties. Tell me how it works.
Well, Don and I are incredibly close. I mean, Don and I spend every weekend together. We work together. Our offices are right next to each other. And same with Ivanka when she was in the company. Ivanka was amazing. And the 4 of us had so much fun. But we manage all the hotels that we own. We manage all the golf properties that we own. We have a lot of great commercial buildings. We have a lot of great residential buildings, wineries, retail, everything else. I mean, we have a dynamic company, but we have a lot of fun. We're always smiling. Don has 5 kids, and they'll run up and down the hallways of the company. So you have kind of the next generation. Maybe we would call it the new next generation of kids running around, and people are happy. I mean, it's just, we have a great time. We work very hard. We take our jobs incredibly seriously. But as a family company, we also have a lot of fun. And, it's a very special formula if you can get it right.
It's a different setup than we've ever seen before, because obviously the president came into office with a whole life. He built a company and, grew it, and you and your siblings have been there. But when you go to places like Jakarta, when you go to Manila, when you go to places around the world, sure, even places that have a large Muslim population, sure, what kind of reaction do you get from your partners there to the president's policies?
An amazing reaction, honestly.
Good reaction.
And the reason is, America hasn't been the friend that it should be to so many countries over the last several years. I mean, look at what we've done so many times to Israel over the last decade. We haven't been to the friend to them that they deserve. They're our best ally in that region by far.
How will this company look different, do you think, in 4 years?
Yeah. Listen, I think, sky's the limits for us. Sky's the limits. I mean, we're a company that has very, very low debt. We're a company that can expand in so many different fields. Hey, if we want to go out and do a residential building, we can do that. If we want to go do a golf course, we can do that. If we want to do nothing, we can do that as well. And so we have tremendous opportunity.
Well, we're in Trump Tower right now, and the most recent story was wiretapping of Russians. What do you think when you hear this stuff? What happened?
It's so ridiculous. It actually infuriates me because I think I understand this company better than any human being in the world. And we have no projects in Russia. If we had projects in Russia, you'd see our name on those projects. Or we're not exactly bashful about hiding our name. We like having our name on our buildings, including Trump Tower that you're in, obviously right now. And it's a little bit maddening. I mean, here's a narrative, because a certain party lost an election and they needed to, try and put somebody else down that they further and they perpetuate, and there's zero truth behind it. And it's just very, very sad. And I'd like to see that party take an inward look at themselves, and maybe the leaders of that party shouldn't be, making their password to their computers password. I mean, why don't you start there? And but it's maddening. But it's all just gray noise at this point.
I also thought it was funny that your brother did tweet, "Thank you, Rachel Maddow, for telling the world my father is a wealthy man and he actually paid 25% tax rate."
Yeah, it was it's kind of. That whole thing was just amazing. He paid 25. He paid $38 million in taxes. He had
exactly $38 million or something.
$150 million worth of income that year, and paid $38 million worth of taxes. And they lined them up against Obama's taxes, and they lined them up against everybody else's taxes. And he was paying a higher tax rate, which kind of shuts down the whole argument. But it's really sad that we're in an environment where tax returns are leaked by whoever it may be. And I mean, just think about it. I mean, just think about how dangerous that is, how third world that is of a practice that happen when personal information is being put out by people for political agendas. And it's as a civilian, it's actually scary to me.
Eric, it's great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maria.
And we've got much more of my exclusive interview with Eric Trump tomorrow on Mornings with Maria on the Fox Business Network. Join us tomorrow on the Fox Business Network at 6 a.m. Eastern tomorrow morning. We'll see you then. We'll take a short break. When we come back, President Trump's Supreme Court nominee on the hot seat tomorrow. We're going to preview that. Will Democrats try to block Neil Gorsuch's confirmation? We'll talk to Senator Tom Tillis as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures next. Welcome back. President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Neil Gorsuch, will be on the hot seat tomorrow. His Senate confirmation hearings will begin tomorrow. Now, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has already said Democrats remain skeptical about Mr. Trump's choice to replace the late Justice Antonin Scalia. We want to bring in Republican Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina, who is also a member of the Judiciary Committee, to talk more about this, because tomorrow will be the beginning of a process. Now, we know that Neil Gorsuch was, in his earlier post, already approved 100% by the Democrats. But let's bring in Senator Tillis right now to get more on that, because he also is going to address what the timeline looks like. So we'll take a short break. When we come right back, we've got Senator Tom Tillis on the other side. Back in a minute. Welcome back. We want to bring back now Republican Senator Tom Tillis from North Carolina, a member of the Judiciary Committee. Good to see you, Senator. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
What kind of pushback do you expect from Senator Schumer to Neil Gorsuch?
They're going to have to work hard to push back. He's got the academic credentials. He's got the record on the bench. He's been voted for unanimously when he was confirmed for the 10th Circuit, and a lot of those people are on the Judiciary Committee, so it should be very interesting to see how they behave tomorrow in the committee hearing.
Well, I mean, is it so? In other words, what you're saying is you see wide support. But we know that Chuck Schumer and many of his colleagues have been trying to disrupt the president from executing his agenda. Do you think we'll see more pushback in that regard, even though you believe that there is deep, broad support?
Well, I think that Senator Schumer and Elizabeth Warren, who is the de facto minority leader, are spending a lot of time trying to obstruct the president and obstruct Congress. I don't think it's going to work. The last time they tried this, Harry Reid was the majority leader and the minority leader, and they lost. I think that they need to recognize people are expecting results, right, not obstructionists.
What's the one most important thing we need to watch for at that hearing tomorrow?
Well, it'll be very interesting opening up with Senator Schumer and Durbin, some of the ones who supported Neil Gorsuch when he was confirmed several years ago. It'll be interesting to see their opening statements, exactly how far they're going to go. I'm optimistic that we're going to get support.